A large number commencing the pre-registration online, but the figure compared to the number of completed registration physically is actually always very high. So we suspended it for that reason, so that those who have already applied for the pre-registration online can now book for an appointment to complete the registration. But if we allow the two to continue simultaneously, it means that some of them may not have the opportunity to actually complete the registration physically. And that's the reason, but it's only one component of the online pre-registration. I must say this, that after the 2019 general election, we had an engagement with citizens, all stakeholders, in different parts of the country. Eventually, we had a big retreat in Lagos, and citizens made over 170 recommendations to the Commission. We have the report. And the recommendations are in three parts. Those that require administrative action by INEC, or recommendations that require amendment to the existing laws, that's the Electoral Act, or those that require alteration of the Constitution. But for those that require just administrative action by the Commission, we have implemented them completely, including the online pre-registration. It is young Nigerians who actually suggested to the Commission. In fact, one of them was so agitated, he sent a letter to say that they are going to organize a demonstration in front of the Commission if we did not start the online registration. So there was a contact on the letter. I invited them to the office. I said, no need to organize a demonstration. You are preaching to the converted. Come, let's share ideas. How exactly do you want this online pre-registration to proceed? Fortunately, what they proposed is consistent with what we were thinking about. And this is what led to the online pre-registration, learning from the experience of the queues that happened in 2017 and 2018. So this is the reason why we suspended the online pre-registration, but the four components remain. The second question is inadequate machines, especially in the southeast. Yes, I had complaints, particularly from Anambra, and I've been on the phone with our resident electoral commissioner for Anambra State since yesterday. Particularly when some of the images surfaced online, saying that, oh, they visited our office, particularly in Inewi North. The office was under lock and key. The office was attacked. We shut down the office. And the same thing with our office in, in Idemili North that we shut down, and the video was from Idemili North. But we also closed down our office in Inewi South. We closed the office in Ogbaru and then Ayamelum. So these four local governments were not doing the registration. But after discussion with the REC, we agreed that we are going to send more machines to the states. And it's not only the southeast or Anambra in particular. There are also queues building up in Lagos. We also saw queues building up in the FCT, particularly Gariki, and in the urban local government areas in Kano. So we'll send additional machines. And therefore, once we have the additional machines, we'll be able to respond to the queues. I want to thank all of you for the efforts you have made to get Nigerians out to register. My only wish was that we started this much earlier than now, because we started the registration 11 months ago. But probably when we started, they did not pay attention to all your advocacy, typical of the way we do things. So we'll wait until the last week of the exercise, then we troop out. And then at that point, we'll talk about being disenfranchised. But our responsibility is to respond to what citizens want. You require more machines so that we clear the queues, more machines will be provided. And then we'll watch and see what happens. I have been registering as a voter. I'm not such a young person now. I've been registering as a voter and involved in election administration for the last 37 years. The first time I registered was in 1983. And since 1983, with every registration, whether it is a fresh registration or continuous registration, there has always been that clamor for extension towards the end. The Commission will always listen to what Nigerians want, will always facilitate it to make sure that as many Nigerians as possible register and collect the PVCs, not just registering, register and collect the PVCs to be able to vote. So we're watching the trend, but be rest assured, we'll be very positive when the time comes. I'm not Mr. INEC, so I'm not saying the commissioner has decided to extend, but the INEC has demonstrated that we are very positive always. What Nigerians want is what we provide. I think that's a cause for cheer without saying much. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Just a follow-up question to that, because a lot of people wonder, while we understand that the voter registration has to end at some point, because as the law says, you have to end 90 days before any election, why does it not continue right after? You said it was opened 11 months ago. If it's called a continuous voter registration, why is it not constantly open, regardless of whether election is coming up or not? Maybe you should just explain that to us.
Okay, this is actually the easiest thing to explain. You know, before 2010, with every election in Nigeria, voters were required to register afresh. In 2010, the Commission introduced the biometric register of voters. So we are only updating. Those that are registered need not register because it's an offense to register more than once. So the question is, the law says that there shall be continuous registration of voters. Why did we start 11 months ago? And why are we suspending the registration in June instead of 90 days to the election as provided by law? We couldn't have started the registration much earlier. Much as we wanted to start the registration immediately after the 2019 general elections. Remember the big issue in 2020, COVID. Once COVID set in, much of the world, probably the entire world, was actually shut down. So there was no way we could have conducted voter registration under the circumstances. Even election became difficult for us to conduct. Later, of course, many nations and health authorities came up with the protocols for conducting activities involving a large number of people. Remember, in the year 2020, probably the number of people in this hall would have been half of it because of the COVID protocol. We couldn't have registered voters. But the positive side of the COVID lockdown is the online pre-registration. So it reduced the number of people that gathered in a location, and then it also facilitated the registration. That is the positive side of COVID. So we couldn't have started it much as we wanted much earlier. But even when we decided to start, and we doubled the number of centers, between 2017 and 2018, we registered citizens in 1,446 centers nationwide. We said we expected a surge for the new registration. Therefore, we increased the number of centers to 2,673. But we couldn't deploy for security reasons. So what did the Commission do? We called a meeting of all the stakeholders, the media, civil society, political parties, and the security agencies. That this is our particular predicament. What do we do? The civil society, political parties, media, and the security agencies told us to be careful about security. We should start online, devolve fiscal registration to identified centers in our 774 local government areas, watch the situation before we devolved to the other centers, including the rotational centers. So it was purely after consultation with all the stakeholders, including civil society. So we couldn't have started this earlier, but we have started. That's the good thing. We are now doing the registration both fiscally, and we have just suspended the online registration after 1 year, and it continues online physically. Now, the question is, the law says, and I've read comments about that, the law says we should stop the registration 90 days to the election. That is exactly what the law does not say. That is exactly what the law does not say. Now, that's why in my opening remarks I said we should be reading the provisions of the law actually very carefully. I know that there are several sections of the Electoral Act that talk about online the registration of voters. The law says that INEC shall stop voter registration not later than 90 days before the date fixed for the election. Not later than 90 days. Therefore, nothing stopped the Commission from stopping the registration earlier. Where the law doesn't want INEC to stop until 90 days, the law would have said, don't stop earlier than 190 days. Like the law says, don't conduct elections earlier than 150 days to the handing over. And if there is any specific date that the law wants us to stop, the law would have said so. Like end of campaign by political parties, stop 24 hours before the date fixed for the election. But look at the other activities that we need to undertake from the time the registration is suspended to election date. Section 19, I think Section 19, subsection 1 of the Electoral Act talks about publication of the register of voters nationwide, not later than 90 days before the date fixed for the election. So if you take the 90 days provided for under Section 9(6) of the Electoral Act, what about under Section 10(1), what about Section 19(1) of the Electoral Act? It said that we have to stop the registration and we have to paste the list in all local governments and all wards of the Federation. What does that take? It's a huge work. If you look at the register of voters at the polling units, the register has 10 names on it. So our projection is that if we have 90 million registered voters, and each page has 10 names, and the law requires that we should paste the register in all local governments and all wards nationwide for claims and objections by citizens. It means that we have to print those registers physically. So 90 million divided by 10, it will give you 9 million. So the Commission will print 9 million pages of the register to paste for claims and objections by citizens. And we do it as a Commission. That's why we have giant printers in all INEC offices nationwide. And that is part of the reason why we have a spike in the election budget. It's a requirement of the law. We have to do it so that citizens can help us to clean up the register of voters. When that is done, then we have to consolidate the register, new registrants and the old registrants, and produce the register of voters for the next election, 2023. And we print 3 copies of the register, 1 in color at the polling units on election day, 2 for display, including 1 at the polling units. So 9 million times 3 is 27 million pages that INEC has to print for the elections. In addition to that, we have to do the deduplication so that we remove the ineligible registrants from the register, and then print the PVCs and make the PVCs available for collection. If we stop 90 days to the election, vital time will be eaten by these preparations, such that the PVCs will probably be ready 1 or 2 weeks to the election. And then you will have an even bigger crowd in our offices saying that they have not collected their PVCs. And if they don't collect the PVCs, they can't vote. So of what use is the mobilization for citizens to register when at the end of it all, they won't collect their PVCs before the election? So that's why we decided to stop much earlier than the 90 days to enable us to do all these legal processes required by law and to make the cards available so that long before the election, citizens will have their PVCs to enable them vote on election day. I hope I've responded to the question.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. We'll be taking questions now from the audience. Do we have a microphone in? Okay. Please, we beg you, do not pitch for a job. Just straight to the question, if you can, please. Thank you. Looks like it's far from... You need to move it closer to you. Can you move the stand itself closer? Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, sir. Thank you for giving us your attention. My name is Princess Olivia Adom. I'm a military advocate. However, a bona fide citizen of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. And my question, I don't know if I should start with a comment or a question, but I think
question,
the question, is about a situation some Nigerian groups, young Nigerian groups, have reached out to me because I asked them to send me questions that I could ask you. And one of them brought up a situation in Abia State, where they go to INEC office and they are not given ample opportunities. Some of them were asked to even sweep the offices, INEC offices, for them to be allowed to capture their votes. Some were asked 3,000 naira, the tone of 3,000, like Ebuka rightly stated earlier, to register. For you to, if you want to really register, you have to pay us to do that for you. And most of these people in your INEC offices, most of them are our ancestors. I'm sorry, like most of them are of age. And we have most of these groups saying that, look, if INEC has a challenge in terms of with the energy and all of that, most of these young people are volunteering and want to help INEC do this job. They want a situation whereby some of them, we brought up an idea and said, why don't we, if INEC is having piled up voters registration cards, we don't want a situation whereby 15 million people are beginning to decide who rules this country any longer. And this card, INEC has done a very great job, but the truth is you can't do it all alone. And we like we earlier said, you also propose active people participation. And for us to be able to achieve that, I think INEC should open its doors to the citizenry who are willing to do it FOC for INEC with their money. Some people are suggesting that, you know what, give us just one INEC official who is a supervisor. We know the nooks and crannies of our localities. If this, a particular, maybe let's assume in Abuja now, we live in Use axis, and I'm a resident of Use, and I know that environment very well. I know the register, the INEC register has people's home addresses and all of that. You let people go door to door, and if they don't want to come for their voters card, we will go to their houses, because the truth is people are tired. And when they go to INEC office and INEC has to send them back, we are volunteering. Many people are out there who are interested in saying, okay, you know what, INEC, give us the opportunity to help you share these PVCs. All you need to do is to give us one of your staff who would follow us to do these things, sir. So I don't know if you can please take that into consideration and let the citizens help you do this job.
Thank you very much. Let's take one more question.
All right. Hello, everyone. Mr. Chairman, Ebuka, I've been waiting for this opportunity, and I actually speak for.
Please, can you keep it short?
Yeah, I actually speak for the Nigerian students. So I run.
Your name?
Abia Briggs is my name. Abia Briggs is my name.
Abia Briggs.
Yes, I run the Campus Civic Summit Nigeria. And I've heard what the young people are saying on campus. If you know, our universities in Nigeria are so far out. Our universities in Nigeria are so far out of town, and the students are actually alienated from all of these conversations. Now, a young guy told me in the first summit we had, and our tagline is the student's electoral voice. So he tells me this, that he went to INEC's office in the state and told them to please come to campus. Now, let's not assume that every young Nigerian has a smartphone, every young Nigerian in school has all the details that they can get all this information, because they don't. So where will INEC, why isn't INEC saying, you know what, because it's in your mandate to take all of these things across the country, why don't you give specific attention to the students? Because they are 18. So it means that they are your sons and they're your daughters, and they need special care. Okay. So I'm advocating that they get special care from INEC. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let's take one more, then we'll take the answers. There's an usher there.
Thank you very much. My name is Abdullahi, and thank you, Mr. Chairman. The centralization of registration areas has been an impediment that is affecting CVR exercise, particularly at the rural areas. I'd like to ask Mr. Chairman, why can't we have a significant number of registration areas that we did have polling units across the wards in our country, so that it will fast-track the registration process, because part of what we discover is that Nigerians are willing to come out for trivial exercise, but there are inadequate number of registration areas in the local areas to be able to address the demands with the needs of Nigeria. Then lastly, what measures are you putting in place to checkmate the activities of your officers that are deployed to carry out severe exercise? Because
it's kind of the same related to the question about...
issue of bribe taking.
Yes, she has asked that already.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Starting with Princess on Anambra. We deal with what... Sorry, no, but Aba as well as Anambra. I want to tie it to Anambra. You know, you talked about some of our officials demanding that citizens should sweep before they are registered.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I actually saw that.
Okay. Okay. There was a clip that I also saw. But that clip relates to Anambra, not Aba. And I will tell you what I did yesterday. I called the resident electoral commissioner. There was a particular registration area officer responsible for that location where that incident is reported to have happened. And we have contacted the registration area officer. The matter is under investigation by the commission. We will not sweep it under the carpet. We will deal with it. The nation has made resources available to the commission to register voters without paying a dime and without the inconvenience of asking them to do any chores. So if anybody does that, we'll deal with the matter, I promise you. There is another case, I think, of people allegedly collecting money in, not Newe, is it Onisha? In Anambra State. And I discussed this matter with the resident electoral commissioner yesterday, and 2 staff are already on suspension from that location. So whatever happens, we'll deal with it. We'll investigate. To be fair to the staff, we'll also investigate. Registration is free, whether you are going for fresh registration or replacement of cards, and nobody should be asked to do any other thing apart from going there to be treated with dignity at the point of registration. And we'll ensure that citizens are treated with dignity. What we have done again in the case of Anambra, where the complaint is coming the loudest, is actually they requested for additional machines today. By Monday, we'll send additional machines to Anambra. But I told them that for the 4 local governments I described earlier, where our offices were closed down, let them meet with the stakeholders and meet with the security agencies and explore the possibility of reopening the local government area offices and also creating some additional centers so that we can serve citizens better. The only joy we derive is in serving Nigerians in dignity, and we'll continue to do so. On the availability of cards for collection, you are suggesting that there should be a system where INEC officials work with volunteers to take these PVCs to the doorsteps of citizens. This is one possibility to be considered. But it is for a reason that the Commission moved away from the idea of distribution of PVCs to collection. There is a difference between distribution and collection. When you distribute, there's the possibility that the cards will end up in the wrong hands, because people will come and collect cards in bulk, and then they will not reach the owners of the card. So the Commission now said, no, it should be collection. Therefore, the onus is on citizens that register to go and collect their cards rather than distributing. So it's one possibility that the Commission will look at. But sometimes, you know, when you want to do a good thing, others may not have the kind of mind that you have, Princess, particularly when you are dealing with politics. But it's one possibility. Our rep in Lagos called me last week while I was in Ekiti to say that there was a voter that we called on phone to come and collect his card. He asked, you know, he said exactly what you have said, that they should bring the card to him at home. But if that voter was called by his bank to come and collect his ATM, he will not say the same thing. He will go to the bank and collect. But whatever we can do to make it a lot more convenient for voters, we'll do so. If we don't do it before the 2023 general elections, immediately after the elections, we will do so. Remember, it's incremental progress. It's incremental progress. So it's one option. I'm not foreclosing that option at all. It's one option that we should consider. Then Abia Briggs, establishment of registration centers on campus so that we can cater for our sons and daughters. You know, before the 2019 general election, we did campus outreach. And part of the problem with on-campus registration, then you end up after some time with a huge demand for transfer and relocation because they continue to move. And that's why before the 2015 general election, we had a huge backlog of uncollected cards. Some of them were registered on campus, on the campuses. But unfortunately now, the students are not on campus. That's one. But secondly, I will continue to appreciate the role of students. Not only because I was a student, but when I was younger, I was also like you. We did the Aluta, you know, as a member of the non-Senate. You know, I was also active as a young man. I'm no longer young now. I can't pretend. So whatever we can do. And also students are some of the most valued election duty staff to the commission. We don't have enough core members, so we rely on students of tertiary institutions as election duty staff. Not only that, through the advocacy of groups like yours, we have also been able to register a lot more young people in Nigeria than people in my own age bracket. Right now, if we take the registration conducted between June, July last year and December, 78% of all new registrants are between the ages of 18 and 34, and majority of them students. So we are actually reaching out. What we want to appeal to you next is to please ensure that beyond registration, these young people come out to vote on election day. Because it's one thing to have the card and another thing to now use it effectively on election day to vote for the party or candidate of their choice. Abdullah, registration in rural areas, can we do the registration at PU level? Is that what you said? If we can do the registration at polling unit level instead of ward level. We have 176,846 polling units. Remember, this is not like election day activity where you just do it for one day and it's over. It's every day. We can't rely on volunteers. The commission has to find the resources to pay. And deploying registration officers to all the polling units nationwide consistently for a year or two, you know, the cost will just be unbearable. It will be a big issue of discussion in this country. And, you know, some people may volunteer, others may not volunteer. But you cannot rely on volunteers if you are approaching the matter on that scale. But see what we have done. In states that have off-cycle elections like Ekiti and Osun and Anambra, we developed the registration to ward level. In fact, in Anambra State, we deployed the registration before the governorship election in November last year to 326 centers. Before we suspended it before the governorship election, and they resumed after the governorship election. So if there is a possibility of devolving the registration to polling units level consistently, the commission will look at that possibility. But honestly, this is the constraint now. Much as I would like that to happen, I have to come out clean before Nigerians and tell them what is doable and what is not. Because I don't want at the next conversation to say the chairman promised that he's going to devolve the registration to PU level, and now it's not happening. That's the reality. But it's a possibility that we should all look at. And then you talked about the behavior of staff. I think I've responded to that. Whatever becomes obvious, we deal with it. I want citizens to remember that before we commence this registration, we gave the names, addresses of all our state and local government offices nationwide and telephone numbers to contact these offices when in need. So please don't just complain on the social media. Approach our offices. If you have issues with an office in a local government, for instance, escalate it to the resident electoral commissioner at state level. And there are telephone numbers you can contact. In one of the states, we have just established a toll-free line, and then we have a WhatsApp line linked to the toll-free line, so that you can now forward your complaints to those who can immediately respond. While they have difficulty, they escalate to us. But alternatively, you can seize the opportunity of our online social media platforms to reach us directly. And I see some of these comments, not all, but I see them. And other officials will quickly respond to them. So wherever there are violations or infractions, please quickly draw our attention to these violations and infractions and give us specific locations so that we can deal with it. It's not good to say in a state or in a local government. Let's be specific so that we can deal with the situation immediately. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.